Stay right there. What are you waiting for? Kill them! Kill them both! No, wait a minute. Is it money you're after? I'll give you as much as you want.
May the saints forgive you, because I won't.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. Today we got a packed house. We got 10 of us up in here today. And we're going to have all the rejects introduce themselves until we get to the man of the hour, the very special guest for you. Lisa, please, the Occult Reject Mad Scientist. Let everybody know what your deal is. What's up?
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, everybody. The only thing I have to plug is occultresearchinstitute.org, where a lot of our fellow occult researchers are contributing. So that's it for me. And I'm very excited to hear everything that Greg has to say today.
Awesome. Yes, me too. Thank you very much for joining us. And Jin The Ninja. What's going on?
Well, thank you, boss. Not Fratter today, but and thank you to Greg Carlwood. Obviously, I'm really excited and / nervous. But so I host a show called Threshold Saints, which is serial experiments in speculative ontology. It's meta magic, meta reality, and metaphysics. And then I also co-host a Friday night space. We call it Friday Night Gnostic Mass, called the Grey Lodge, which Nick was so great to jump on last week when I was gone. So we've launched Aeon of the Daughter, which is an 11-part Gospel of Love, as well as our book club. And then also we're doing a new series called Welcome to Hapaboria, which is sort of modern American Gnosticism. So yeah, you can check me out, Insta, IG, Twitter, all that. And my link tree will be below. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. And JJ Vance, what is going on, sir?
Nick, greetings, sir. Appreciate the invite as always. Fellow Occult Rejects, Greg Carlwood, great to meet you, sir. JJ Vance, host of Operation GCD, and more notably, not the vice president. The Operation GCD live every Wednesday, Fridays with the Occult Rejects every Friday night, and Sundays coming this week here, Patreon only Sundays here at Operation GCD at 8 p.m. Looking forward to the conversation. Always great to, meet all the Occult Rejects. This is the big team we got here today.
Hell yeah. Thank you very much.
Forward to it.
And Ethan Indigo, sir, what is going on?
Peace, salute to everybody. Glad to be here. I'm a writer on the esoteric and the exoteric, and can be found real easily. And check out Occult Research Institute. Glad to be here with everyone.
Thank you. And another special guest we got with us today. This man's been along the journey, really, with the Occult Rejects, and I think some of the best work that has been done on this show has been done with him, so I wanted to get him involved. We got Mario from Symbolic Studies, the Tarot Man himself. Please let everybody know what is up.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for the invite, dude. My project is called Symbolic Studies. You can find all my stuff at symbolicstudies.com. I do short form videos available for tarot readings. I've got presentations on my YouTube, all that kind of stuff. Stoked to talk to Greg and everyone else. So yeah, thanks again.
Of course. And we got Ricardo. Please, sir, let everybody know what your deal is and where they can find all your amazing research.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for the invite. Good evening to everyone. I'm very excited to listen from Greg today and see what he has to say. And as for me, I'm a multidisciplinary researcher, and you can find all about me in my X account as it is in the screen at Ricard Calvary 1 at X. Do check out our magazine, Pharaohs. You can find it at the institutefornaturalphilosophy.org. Thank you, Nick, for the opportunity.
No, of course. Thank you. And we got the Cosmic Peach herself, Julia. What is going on?
What's up, Nick? I'm so excited for this one. I've been looking forward to it. Have Cosmic Peach podcast wherever you listen or find your podcasts. If you haven't found me yet, you never will. But I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And last but not least, the Mormon Slayer herself, Heidi Love.
Hello, everybody. I'm Heidi Love of the Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served. I do have my own website, unfilteredrisepodcast.com, and I'm better known as the ex-Mormon girl.
Hell yeah.
Nice to meet you, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And finally, last but not least, the man of the hour. I'm sure everybody knows who he is. He's the OG 420 friendly conspiracy theorist. Word on the streets, he's smoked blunts with Bigfoot and he's ripped bong hits at Bohemia Grove. We got Greg Carlwood from the Higherside chats up in here today. Greg, please let everybody know what the hell is up and what's going on.
Hey, thank you for having me. No pressure, right? I mean, I really am just a regular guy and have a regular guy's level of knowledge. You guys all probably know a lot more about the occult than me, but people know me because I got in there first. I've been doing the podcast for 15 years. The highersidechats.com is the place to go. And it really is all the great guests I've had over the years that make the show what it is. I'm just a guy asking some questions and some of it sticks, but a lot of times it's like preparing for a book report. You cram, you do the thing, and then you're like, all right, that's done. But after 15 years, hopefully I remember some things and have some interesting things to bring up. But pleasure to meet everybody.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I totally understand what you're saying about forgetting stuff because, like, between everybody I work with, they'll be like, don't you remember when we talked about so-and-so? And I'm like, no, sorry, I don't. That was 3 weeks ago. I don't remember. There was 10 other shows in there that I remembered, partial stuff. I just forgot. But
yes, it all does bleed together.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Thank you. So Greg, I figured, besides that there's 9 other people here, everybody's got questions. But I did think maybe kind of just set it off as, again, you've been around for a while. You do touch on the occult besides other things. I guess just kind of wanted to know, your experience in the occult with the journey through your podcast, maybe things that opened up your thinking, things that surprised you, I don't know, people that impacted you, good or bad, and it doesn't, have to necessarily be putting the person down when I say bad. It just, stuff like that, and just really free-flowing. But I guess maybe just start it off first off, what even got you into starting the Higherside chats?
Well, I was always kind of anti-authoritarian and into conspiracies and even things like the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and UFOs that get you going when you're young. I liked punk music. So I also kind of grew up in a repressive Catholic school environment in the Midwest. So religiosity was definitely there. Obviously, it's an anti-occult environment, but it's still in the mix. And I tried on atheism for a long time and was just like, you know what? If I think this is bullshit, if I think that it's wrapped up in a lot of nasty stuff with the Vatican and all this, well, if I don't trust these people, maybe the whole thing is bullshit. And I think a lot of people eventually come out of that. Again, if you go through it, it's more about the environment you're in. It's more about the indoctrination of traditional, almost corporatized religion. And you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I had to remind myself that little things happened when I was young that blew the doors off materialism. And I was conveniently ignoring some of those things. Like one of the craziest was when I was in about the preschool age. This kind of makes my parents look bad, but I did not wear my seatbelt much. There were not car seats, at least at this age. Even though now I see people putting kids in car seats for a long time. But regardless, I was on my way to something with my mom, and I had this inner voice say, put your seatbelt on. And it was incredibly aggressive. And for some reason, I listened, and we were in a car accident. My mom got T-boned like 5 minutes later. And I would never forget that was the reason why I didn't fight it, and why I wasn't even being asked to do it. And I think my parents just got sick of how stubborn I was. And in this particular instance, this inner voice was so loud. I was like, that was definitely intuition, some guardian angel type thing. I don't know if that's the higher self, whatever it is, but I think a lot of us have telephone telepathy, or we see something strange.
Feel somebody looking at you.
Yeah, it's often in those early years. And then we might put it away and be like, well, I'm not going to hinge my entire worldview on the 5 seconds, which I saw something that defied reality. Maybe I was mistaken back then. But I swung back. Obviously, I was into conspiracy, and it's very adjacent. I always liked the David Icke flavor of conspiracy more than the Alex Jones angry patriot Texas thing. That didn't really resonate with me, maybe because it was too close to home, the way I grew up. And I mean, my parents were very normal, which allowed me to be normal too. But outside of the confines of my home in the Midwest, in rural Missouri, Arnold, Missouri, you see a lot of stuff. The parents of the kids you're going to school with, you know, and I think that's great because some people were way more of the mindset that they were drinking the Kool-Aid and still do and always have. People I still like, but they didn't try on any other hats because in their house, it wasn't tampered down at all. It was still like as intense as it was at school. So, you know, whatever. But I think if you go into conspiracy long enough, it definitely crosses over into occult areas. You start looking at symbolism. I saw an early documentary on marketing and just subliminal messages in marketing. And then that gets adjacent to magic. And it was guests like Gordon White who kind of recontextualized the psi effects and the telephone telepathy type of thing and said, no, that is magic. That is a product of a magical universe. And I think it's kind of a changing of the definition that made me feel like the world is more magical. And, you know, the rest is kind of history.
It's interesting. You kind of, I guess we shared a little bit of the same situation where it went from, you know, kind of Catholicism, Catholic, into thinking there's something wrong with the church because of the conspiracies, and then I become an atheist. Mm-hmm. And then about 5 years later, I found myself in the OTO. So,
I did not go that
no,
far.
Yeah, no, I did. But
is sex magic really the big secret at the end of that?
For me, my magical experience, yeah, I think I was given some secrets. Yes. So, but not at the OTO. It was not. Wait. Oh, sorry. Did you wait? Say what did you say?
Is it sex magic?
Oh no. You know, that's the whole thing. And the experiences that I had, there was no ritual done, no sex, and all I did was meditate.
Did you see the Gnostic Mass?
Oh, I've been in the Gnostic Mass plenty of times.
Did you see the full? Apparently, the real Gnostic Mass, they're banging.
I've never seen anything else besides breasts.
Oh,
yeah. Oh. I'm kind of grateful for that.
Yeah, I thought you said, Nick, you saw they always pick the big fat chicks to get up there and take their tops off, didn't they?
Well, just from my experience, I mean, listen, I'm not bragging saying I'm God's gift to women, but I did not want to see any of those women naked anyway. So just keeping it real.
That's hilarious.
But yeah.
Mormons don't get naked either. No naked.
I forgot where I was going somewhere with this. I forgot. But yeah, there was no sex. I mean, I was only there for 5 or 6 years. Only went up a few degrees. You have to go past the fourth. Like the fourth, you get shoulder tap to go past. So, you know, maybe when you hit the fifth, that's when all the weird shit happens. I don't know. So, but that's, my experience. But yeah, I kind of had the same thing. And like you said, the David Icke, I was much more into David Icke, Jordan Maxwell, Michael Tessarian. So like when I first started getting into all those people, there was nothing, I mean, I didn't have a choice really. I was going to hear about occultism. Mm-hmm. And then, you know.
I was just going to say also astrology is one of those early things that I just couldn't really dismiss the results of. And the typical excuse that everything's just so broad and vague that you can apply it to yourself, that didn't really resonate. And so that was just another thing that's like, well, if this is true, then I have to change my worldview about what reality is. Synchromysticism, too, another area where conspiracy and symbolism cross over. And your entry-level thought is that, well, maybe this stuff is just seeded into films by the people who are, you know, the cast and crew. But some of it defies logic in that regard, too. And then you're like, man, something metaphysical seems to be going on. And then maybe you start thinking about consciousness and big events that well up a lot of conscious energy. And then maybe it manifests through like a muse-like way, where someone has to write something in a film and they're like, well, I'm going to put it as 9/11. Well, why did you pick 9/11? Maybe it wasn't absolutely conscious, but there's just some deep echo in the back of your subconscious that's like, this is an important date, so put it on Neo's passport. Who knows? But there's something mystical about a lot of that stuff. So those are just some other components that I just think, if you haven't gotten rid of materialism yet, just look at some of that stuff and try to figure out how it works in a material universe.
I agree with it. Did anybody want to ask any questions?
I do.
I know it, Julia.
I don't want to hog Greg's time or anything, but because you mentioned David Icke, you know, he's been scrutinized to like the max. Are you like a lizard people person, or are you like where do you fall in the lizard spectrum?
Well, I think with David Icke, he's even clarified a lot of those comments. So it's hard to separate, especially in a pre-internet world. When I was getting into David Icke, you have the actual person, their actual material, and then the caricature that society reduces it down to. And obviously with David Icke, he was reduced down to the lizard guy. All these elite are literal lizard people wearing rubber masks. And that's not true. That's, again, like the materialist viewpoint of what he's getting at, which I think if you take the metaphysical, spiritual look at what David Icke says, which he even himself now would say, it's more like there's maybe some deep bloodline represented by reptilian symbolism. Why is the reptilian symbolism there? Does it go all the way back to literal reptiles, or has it always been symbolic? Mario's probably the guy to answer more of these questions. But I think that that's a literalization of what he's trying to say, which is something more metaphysical. A lot of people, when they have a spiritual experience with something they think is alien, reptiles come up all the time. I don't think they saw Hillary Clinton as an iguana in their living room, but they saw something on the astral plane represented as a reptilian energy.
Like a serpentine-like energy.
Yeah, and so I think there might be, if you go back far enough, a physicality to that somewhat, but I kind of think like ufology was trying to find itself in a material worldview initially. So what are these things? They must be humanoid creatures from another physical planet, because they're not able to rope in the spiritual layer of reality. They can't have an explanation that changes that worldview, that fundamental worldview that everything's physical, Big Bang and everything. So if you're not going to have a spiritual layer to your reality, you get weird conclusions. And I think that's what the David Icke thing is I think he's very metaphysical, and he's trying to explain things in a way that makes sense. And he says reptilian, and people literalize it and say, oh, well, he means Hillary Clinton's wearing a rubber mask. And it's like, that's a little silly. But is she attached to a spiritual archonic presence that is maybe riding her and even possessing her to a degree because it recognizes power and it is a reptilian energy? I think that's probably possible, probably even likely.
Or like some kind of bloodline thing almost. Yeah, 100.
That's a literalization too, but they definitely care about bloodlines. The elite are obsessed with that. So you have to reverse engineer. If they care, then it's something important. And what is it? Well, there's all this Steiner stuff. When Steiner talks about blood, I'm like, that is your spiritual essence. So maybe it's splitting hairs talking about a reptilian bloodline and a reptilian spiritual energy attachment. It's probably, maybe that's how it's connected in through the blood.
And the Nakash, I think it's connected back to the garden. Like, you know.
There you go. Like I said, you guys know more than I do about a lot of this stuff, but these are the conclusions when I've, after 15 years of asking guests, some things resonate and some don't. Some things you hear more often than others. And, that's basically my broad viewpoint on how reptilians can exist and probably do.
I agree with you 100.
If I may, Greg. So you said many times of what you heard from people, but my question is directly to you and not to those people, to your personal experience. So after all you've learned of the experience you accumulated, transforming that knowledge into some form of wisdom, how do you see reality? How do you conceive it to be today, and how it relates to consciousness and existence in itself?
Well, I think I settle on the soul school hypothesis that we come here to have physical experiences. We're fractals of the Godhead, and we take that experience back to the central supreme consciousness and fold it in. And I don't know why. There's a lot of explanations. Like the basic one is that consciousness existed, made a physical container for itself, And that is only enjoyable to play through if you come in with no memory that you're God. And I think that checks out. That kind of makes sense. And if you push on the reality we have, then you can quickly find out it goes deeper, but you can go your whole life without pushing on it at all and just live a straight experience, a straightforward physical reality experience, which is probably what it was somewhat designed to do. But I think it's, a realm of experience, which is what I think is really sad when so many other people I know don't fully dive in, and that's where the conspiracy comes in, is I think so much of it is about capturing our attention and wasting our time. Like just jobs, obviously, number one thing, to say that 8 hours a day you're going to sleep, 8 hours a day you're going to work for us, and then you get the other 8 hours, but some of it's traffic. Then you're going to have to eat. You're going to have to get ready for work and shower and all this stuff. It really starts to get whittled away to, okay, I guess I have 2 hours in the evening to watch a fucking Netflix show, and that's it. And so I think a lot of it is wasting people's time and keeping them from engaging in the experience. I don't know what the elite are exactly, if they hate God or if they're fallen angels or something of that realm, or they just want to corrupt the experience as much as they can. So they do genetic tinkering and all this other stuff. But it seems like they're very spiteful of experience itself. And so I think that they have tiers of ways they attack it. And one of them is just like, have all these people waste their time in a numb state of baseline consciousness, never explore anything, snuff out their curiosity, and just neutralize what this thing is designed to do. And they do a pretty damn good job of that. I think we all know people who barely ever get off the couch outside of going to work and coming home in the evening. So I like the soul school idea that it is a realm of experience and hopefully learning and hopefully progress. I don't necessarily have evidence of that part, but it just seems like, why do it otherwise?
I like that.
That is so true. That is literally so true. I almost feel like before I started podcasting full time that I was like clinically depressed. I was working like 12-hour shifts at a hospital, and I would come home and just like zone out almost. And the system is like set up to where you're just a cog in a machine. Yes. And that's how you feel literally. I mean, that's so true.
Especially the medical system, the way that they have people working those shifts, that's not necessary. There's definitely got to be a better way, but it is more closely to how you would structure psychological torture. So I think that the conspiracy comes in with the medical stuff where they don't want anybody to wake up. They don't want the people working in the trenches to even have time to think about what they're doing. Just go, go, go. Here's the book. This is what we do in this instance, and don't think about it. There is no variance. Take your orders from on high. We saw what that did a couple years ago. But yeah, the medical one in particular is interesting. Another realm where they don't acknowledge the spiritual at all. And there's all these new emerging health systems where they're looking at your emotional state. Have you buried some kind of emotional trauma in you that manifests as cancer later? Like, you can't just cut and burn and poison everything out of a human body. So yeah, I empathize with being in that realm.
Mm-hmm. I work at a psych hospital. They make us do 12 to 13 hours, and then they turn around and tell us, don't have any personal connection with anyone. Don't try and relate to these people that are here for drug and alcohol abuse, and don't try and help them or hug them or touch them or do any of the things that might actually help them. Because
like, don't be their friend. God forbid you be a nice, sweet person to someone who's mentally fucked. Like, come on. And Heidi, with you working there too, I feel like you can agree with this because like you said, I worked like 12-hour shifts too. You don't really get Sunday off either, because all day Saturday you're doing whatever. All day Sunday you're just dreading going back on Monday. So it's like literally a never-ending loop of just like, why the fuck am I doing this? Why the fuck am I doing this? And I mean, I'm so glad that I'm out of that, but for all those who are listening right now that are stuck in it, trust me, the way that you feel is the way you're supposed to feel about it. I mean, it sucks dicks.
Well,
when sometimes they'll say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Julia mentioned depression, and I definitely think depression is a natural reaction to something that you're not doing in accordance with your true will.
Yes. Nailed it.
Yes.
I totally agree.
Me and my wife had a real tough, my now wife, then it was early. She could have got out. But in the beginning, she was like, I have real concerns. If we're going to get raw and honest, I have real concerns that you're never going to be happy unless this big Hail Mary thing you threw, unless that works. And I was like, well, you're probably right. So let's hope it works, because you can't tell me to just change my attitude, just flip my attitude about this thing that is sucking up so much mental energy and physical time. As a store manager of GameStop, yeah, you got it's basically 50 hours a week plus travel time. Then you have people who are paid such a low wage, they're all incompetent. You only have your choice of incompetent people to put in your store. So they're constantly calling you when you're off the clock too. It's miserable. You're making $35,000 a year to run a $2 million store. Your salary, the salary of the boss of the whole store, is a small little line item. It's like not less than the taxes paid probably. And yeah, sorry, I am going to be miserable if I'm stuck in this, because I can't just pretend that it's a good life when I'm in a cul-de-sac to nowhere in the retail ecosystem. Luckily, it worked out.
50 hours a week, and you're still eating Taco Bell and wondering how the fuck you're going to make it to the next paycheck. Like, think about that. It's such a slave system, for real. You have time to shit and shower and go right the fuck back the next day. And like, it just, I don't know. It's horrendous.
But then I also think about, like, if it is a soul school, if reality is set up this way, like, we really, just in that dark city sense, we don't truly have a concept of anything that came before us or anything after. We're kind of the center of our experience. There's a story out there of what might have occurred before and all this, but you're really kind of just in the experience. And if that's true, maybe it is designed to kind of let these people, and that's been a thing, that there was a thing called the hidden hand material. It was on a forum where
I remember that. Oh my God.
Ask me any questions you want and I'll tell you. And they basically, as apologists for the elite, were like, these people actually made a sacrifice to play the role of the bad guy in this system, because to have a good story, there must be a villain. And part of that is you need to push through the difficulty and push through the depression and rise above it and change the circumstance. That is the nagging thing, the stick in the rib cage. It's like, hey, come on, do something, move. And so I almost have learned, now that I'm on the other side of it and it doesn't affect me anymore, I've learned to appreciate that stage of life and going through that, because otherwise I would not have been motivated enough to do what I do now. And maybe this is my true will, to just at least create a stage for important voices and then put them up for the people. And I don't have to do much more than that, then raise the curtain and turn the lights on. Maybe that is my role. I'm comfortable with it compared to other possible roles, but maybe, and I just don't hate it as much as I used to when I was stuck in it. I now appreciate the process of taking a person up to a higher level experience. So if you're in your 20s and you're kind of miserable, like, I think that's what the 20s are for, is letting that feeling fuel something better into your 30s.
Yeah.
I know with mine, I choose to be where I am, and it's all about trying to focus on the people there to try and actually help them, because my brother did pass of a drug overdose. And so that's why I chose to work there, because I thought, well, if I can give something back to these people, and I'm constantly breaking the rules, so it doesn't matter anyway. Like you said, you can change your way about it, be human, like, give them humanity.
Heck yeah.
Real quick, there's a few things I wanted to say, and then I did want to toggle in Robbie Marks, because we can't have more than 10 people. We do have another cult reject here. We just couldn't fit him in. There was a couple of things I wanted to say, though, stuff that you said. One, doing your will. I totally agree with that. I honestly think it may be hard at times, what you're doing, but if you love what you're doing, I think you're doing your will. Again, it may be hard at times, but you're still going to love what you're doing. I totally agree. And when you had said something, I think about, I guess, kind of like your idea, I guess, of the reality. you nailed it on the head. It's like kind of the same thing that I've been trying to say. You just made it sound so much better. I guess maybe as an Italian, I like to use the spaghetti strainer. But like I always say that I consider like you take a light bulb on the ceiling and like you throw the spaghetti strainer over it, and all those little pin dots are all of us having a separate experience from that one original source.
I like that.
Yeah. So I do think, and due to this, we're supposed to rise back up that light with the experience that we've had here, and bring it back, and maybe possibly come back with knowledge. Whatever. That's getting a little bit deeper, but still, it's very, very well said. So I kind of identified with what you were getting at, and I was like, wow, I like the way he said that. But yeah, we're gonna and then the whole thing with David Icke too. I totally agree, and I think I was so happy that you guys were saying that. I do think David Icke, as silly as it sounds when he's talking about the reptilians, from my experience, due to having magical experiences, I do believe I've crossed the abyss and had that experience. I totally get what David Icke's saying if I want to look at it in a Gnostic occult sense. He's saying the same thing. These people, reptilians, are just people that are able to cross the abyss and come back. And those are the people ruling the world. I agree with that. So I do see it that way. I just think it's a little bit harder to come out and maybe say that and still be popular. So maybe he, tries to do it in a different way. I don't know. But I totally...
I also think there's a big difference between how he started doing it and how he does it today. I mean, he wrote a book called The Trap recently, which I think is like 600 pages. Basically, everything I said would be contained within that same framework. So I think his opinion and position has evolved as well.
All right, Robbie Marks, we got you in. So sorry about that, sir.
No worries at all. Yeah, hey, Greg Carlwood, how you doing?
Can't complain.
As I'm an artist, I do art, illustrations. I do a lot of festival, band type merch, stuff like that. I've been an independent artist for going on 35 years. And, when we talk about this system of people just, as cogs in the machine, and they come home and they don't have any time for anything else, especially any kind of intellectual research. Me personally being outside of the system and just doing nothing but research for the last 35 years, you almost in a certain way alienate yourself from a certain subset of people. But at the same time, you have this creative motion of function where you're constantly producing and making output, and there's good years and there's bad years, and you kind of sail through this sea over all this time. Do you find yourself constantly trying to reinvent yourself, or are you happy with a general production level where you're at now? You know what I mean? There's this constant struggle with, it's like sometimes, after 35 years of this, I say, I want to run away and join the office because I work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm always on call. It's just, it's a whole different lifestyle, but your work becomes your life, basically.
Yeah. Grass is always greener, as they say,
yes.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. When I was in Armenia with Graham Hancock on this research tour, my website went down, and I was in Armenia with no signal, and people are like, your website's just completely not there. And I didn't have people at that time to help. So I'm like, okay, my flight's in 6 days. I guess I'll just hate the rest of this trip until I can get back home. And, that stuff happens. Your website is your store, and you're the manager, and you got to make sure it's always open. But yeah, in terms of evolution, it's funny because I am of two minds. Like, I've said it's a refinement process. Yes, I think I got better over time by learning on the air in real time as I had to go. It started as a comedy podcast where I wanted to talk to a group of comedians about conspiratorial topics. I quickly learned some of them are just here to get airtime and they don't care about these subjects at all. And the other ones are more focused on making jokes. This isn't exactly what I wanted. It's not getting deep in any kind of regard. But I was going through like Ari Shaffir, Joey Diaz, for people who listen to comedy podcasts. Like, that's who my early interviews were. And then I did Marco Tessarion, and I was like, okay, this is way closer to what I would want to listen to. So it is a refinement process. Some people would close down shop and open up under a new brand and all this kind of stuff. That's what people do today because they know how lucrative podcasting is and how it's all got to be like polished and tight. But I really wasn't like that at the time. And then I had people send me stuff where a couple other shows were like, hey, this person's mimicking your cadence and the way you do intros. So then I actually honed down into an exact process so that kind of mimicry would be more recognizable, because now here's an actual formula that I use and I'm comfortable using it. And, I just, there's so much vagaries around, like, is this person stealing the cadence of this? A lot of people think Danny Jones basically took the exact Rogan model and then applied it to the stuff we're interested in. Sure. Anyone can do that. People have been talking in microphones a long time. No one has a true monopoly on that. But you don't like to see yourself copied or whatever. So I guess I basically, to answer the question, it's been a process of refinement, but I tried to standardize what you expect from my show. Like, here's a polished intro that gets us in within 2 minutes. There are no ads, there are no sponsors. We're going right to the meat. I try to use the intro to get further downfield than just saying, so tell me your thoughts on UFOs. It's like, no, that was in the intro. Now I want to know your thoughts, your level 11 thoughts on UFOs. What about these things so I try to use the intro to really, with a show that's broad, you kind of have to prep people, prime them for this topic this time, because it does shift. But you caught me right on the cusp of moving to video. We could call it THC TV because I think it flows well. But I'm still coming, like, there's kinks to be worked out. But as of the 1st of June, it's going to be a video show. And that is largely due to the market. Like, I see all these shows that have existed for half the time where hosts don't even read the work of the guests like I do. And then they're rocketing past me. And it's because things evolve and things change. And I'm being dragged kicking and screaming into video. I will get better at it as I go. If I'm kind of starting over, but it's partly what I want, partly what seems to work. So I know, growing up watching this stuff, I'm 40 years old now, which is hard to believe, but I know a lot of guys I watched and they got passed up by podcasting. Why wasn't Coast to Coast AM? Why didn't it convert to a podcast? Guys like Jeff Rentz and Alan Watt, like, there's a lot of conspiracy centric people. Even I love Clyde Lewis, but I might put him in that category too. People who are like, we're doing radio shows. I don't care about this podcasting thing. Well, those people have had a hard time maintaining an audience in this ecosystem. So I have enough awareness to see that, and then see, like, what we're doing here and seeing when I appear on other shows what it looks like. And I'm like, my appearance on another show looks better than my own show. This cannot stand, and we must fix it. So I'm doing it from a studio. I'm trying to do it. I tried to do audio at the highest level I'm capable of. Nice. Not the best show in the world, but it's the best show I can produce. And I'm going to try to do the same mindset with video. And I will embrace and prepare for any other changes within this space, except pretty much AI. I'm not going to do the baby animated thing that people think is fun now.
I think that when you look at the whole process, as far as, you've been doing this 15 years now, and just the whole it's an expansive process. There's going to be times of dormancy and times of growth, and it's a developmental process, like you were saying, as far as the refinement. But I find even after all these years, the only factor that really bothers me is just getting old, because I'm constantly coming into the newness and the refinement, and just bringing it, trying to take myself essentially, and I'm sure like you, to higher levels of understanding and creating a more beautiful product.
I agree. And AI is a little bit of a part of that. What I don't like is people using AI editing, because it's just off-putting to me. And this whole idea of, just turn the person into an animated baby or an animated, be a reptilian for this episode. And they can match and sync the lips up perfectly, but like, we don't need to do that. Like, people are people, and it's okay to just look at the person speaking. But AI tools help polish it. It's a little bittersweet, because when I started, there were very few tools. So I was willing to learn the available tools and build things into my website. Like, I built Patreon before Patreon existed, and it's in my website for just me. And then it came out for everybody, and now everybody has it. So it's nice, because I have Patreon too, and some tools I do use, but not having those tools is what separated the people who are really going to go the extra mile from those who would get lazy and fall off. So it's made it easier for everybody else, but I definitely take advantage of some of those tools too. And having kids, it's like, yeah, anything to make it easier. AI, I'm not at the point and probably won't get to the point. Like, I'm always going to read the book. It's part of my process. It must happen. But now people who don't want to read the book can do an AI summary and act like they know a little bit more and invest just a third of the time. So that's frustrating for a person who's actually reading the book. But I don't trust AI to pull out that one line on page 89 that I want to ask about, because you can't trust them to know, the AI to know what's right. Will it get better? Sure, whatever. Mm-hmm. But what I think AI is cool for is, like, I interviewed Dr. Steven Skinner, who I think most people know. And
nice.
He's a scholar of Western esotericism, and he's translated a lot of books. And I think that's amazing. When I interviewed him, it was like the first time I was like, wow, there's still all this magical literature, occult literature, and all these other languages that has not been translated, because a lot of times, or mistranslated, because the people looking at it don't even believe in magic. So you get one word wrong and it doesn't mean anything. So I do think AI in that regard is really interesting. Let's put it all through. Let's ask ChatGPT, at least get us a starting place. You could take in a day a bunch of stuff that isn't translated. Anyone could, as long as you have access to the initial digitized file of something, whether it's Latin or whatever, like, play around with it. And we have now got tools where we can resurrect old rituals or old occult understandings that weren't meant for anybody else. Yeah. You can do it instantly.
I've thought about that, because I've gone down to the Beinecke Library that was in Yale. That's over in Yale. And I've actually touched certain Heinrich Kuhnroth books and, and taken pictures and videos of these things. I'm like, if I could probably get somehow AI to maybe trying to transcribe that, it'd be pretty impressive.
Now, I did see that they had an AI that was specifically working on the Sumerian clay tablets to translate, because there's hundreds of thousands of those. So they're just scanning them in, and they have an AI that's actively translate. So we're going to have some more, Epic of Gilgamesh and kind of this library of Ashurbanipal that's going to proceed to come forth that they didn't even know about in the late 1800s as far as esoterica,
I would be a little careful with that stuff, because you still have an interpretation from academia presenting something on Discovery Channel. This is the new understanding. It's barely different than the old understanding, but now we have it confirmed because AI. That's going to be happening, but you can do it yourself. That's what I think is so great. And then, you can read between the lines, because I do think some of these programs have a neutrality to them, but some of them also don't. You ask a lot of these programs what happened on 9/11, you might as well ask Chris Wallace or Anderson Cooper, because they will give you their answer. There's a consensus answer. That's what it's good for in those kind of situations. And then there's a more alternative answer. But I think with translations, that's so mathematical in a sense that I do think that you can trust it to get some things right, but they're going to try to shut a lot of that down. But you have access to it right now.
Very nice. Real quick, if you don't just get real quick, I'm just going to remove Robbie, bring Julia back. And I think Lisa did have a question real quick too. And then we'll get to somebody else.
Yes, I wanted to build upon what everybody has been saying lately, and then what you had said right now, Greg, in that, so over the years, you have interviewed an enormous amount of alternative researchers. Have you noticed any meta patterns, synchronicities, something that points to a deeper structure within this conspiracy ecosystem, to use that word that you used itself? And then the second part to the question is, with all the fringe thinkers that you have interviewed, and in this age of conspirituality, and to distill it down even further, these algorithm-driven bubbles, do you see a deliberate hyper-normalization, or is it all just ontological paralysis rather than just plain old censorship?
Oh, man. Well, some of that speaks to, I just did a live event with Gordon White, and the whole subject was the conspiracy canon. It was his idea, but how has the canon changed over time? Like a film canon or whatever. And it makes you think. A lot of it is just the impact of algorithms and the internet. Like, you have to have the most explosive thing, not the truest thing. And, you know, just to take it from the top, back in the day, there was JFK. You can bring it up to 9/11, but a lot of it's the CIA and the economic hitman type of stuff. Maybe a little ufology peppered in there. But there's a canon of a dozen or so events and subjects that people are looking at under the microscope. And that's it. You go to Conspiracy Con in 1995. That's who you're talking to, you know, minus the 9/11 thing. Moon landing, yeah, might be included. But now it is all about the iceberg and like, what's the craziest idea? It's not even about like, what is the truth? It's like, what is the craziest thought I can have? And then how can I make that seem like the reality? And that's difficult because that's not exactly what I ever really wanted to do. I thought the truth was kind of crazy enough, but now we're talking about just all kinds of things I never thought would enter the conversation. Like, people like, are viruses even real? Is the past even real at all? Like, was there an extra 1,000 years inserted into the system? Was there a lost society of amazing architects who knew about the ether that have been wiped out of the history books? And a lot of that can exist because the system has been so highly controlled. And the further you go back, the more control. A lot of our history comes from like 3 guys, Scaliger and a couple other monks in the Vatican basement. Like, not exactly truthful sources. What do I know about Herodotus as a person? You know, like, not anything. Did he genuinely just want to write down everything that happened? Or was he working for an empire that wanted him to write it a certain way? We should probably know, because that's kind of the only source we have for a lot of things we take for granted. So I understand why that exists, and we can play with it a little bit, but it's a little disappointing that sometimes the people who get attention in the conspiracy sphere today, they're not really in it for the truth. They're more pranksters, and they are trying to ontologically shock people, but it isn't about there being a fundamental truth to what they're saying in some cases. And not to name names, but it's just something we have to compete with. We have to try to be genuine and truth-seeking and entertaining, and actually explaining something to people, but also compete with ones who are just trying to be shocking, getting the best thumbnail and all that kind of shit. I never wanted to get into thumbnails and nonsense like that. I have 100,000 YouTube subscribers, and it's just audio. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And obviously I'm going to pivot that, but it's just like, now I can't even get 5,000 people to watch a video. I don't care that much about YouTube because I don't do ads. So who cares? As long as people pay for the extended version of the show, that's what I am in the business for. But because it's not ad-based, that doesn't matter. So I'm not really playing the chase the algorithm game. And also it's not genuine. And I think that the worst thing I could do is like go in some disingenuous direction. But yeah, that's kind of some of the things that I think have changed, and it does make it tougher.
May I ask, as a follow-up to that, there seems to be like a long time conspiracy theory, if you will, to where if you mention anything related to something conspiratorial that someone isn't familiar with, let alone use that phrase, they try to put you into a box. And kind of second part is this cultural phenomenon that now we're dealing with more frequently, where there's like a trigger conspiracy, where if you are rightfully angry at your own exploitation and step out of line, people will kind of put you into that same box as this conspiracy theory idea. I just wanted to ask what your experience has been with that.
Well, on the second point, the trigger, yeah, I definitely think so. Part of that is like the ignorance is bliss thing. A lot of people don't want to be confronted with the fact that they might not be happy living the life they're living. And so you see someone like I had friends like this at the time. They were working store manager jobs and they are happy, or they seem happy, and I'm the one who's not. You don't always want to be around that. You don't want to be reminded that we're all getting to be 30 years old and we all run $1 million stores and none of us can own a home, guys. You know, that's the kind of stuff I would say at these regional meetings with other managers. I'm like, stop drinking the Kool-Aid so much. if we're here next year, we all fucked up, guys. This is the year to get out of this. That's the kind of shit I would say. And some people were like, I like this guy. And other people really didn't want to be reminded that they shouldn't be happy in the situation they are, because changing it is so hard. That's why. It's because you have a 5% chance of probably making it and getting out, because the system is crafted that way. So yeah, people don't like that. But also the triggering kind of conspiracy thing makes me think of the archetype they would present to us in movies and TV, where it's like you're a paranoid, schizophrenic, crazy person. And that kind of enforces the idea, don't look at this stuff. Just leave it alone. Live your nice, comfortable, regular life where you have your brain intact, because look at this guy. He went down a few too rabbit holes. Now he's going to the padded room on the funny farm. You know, those are the terms they would use. So even I think about the poster for, I never even saw the movie, The Number 23 with Jim Carrey, but I didn't really have to see it. You just know from the marketing
what it was about.
It's about noticing patterns and then spinning off in a crazy land. So like, don't notice patterns, guys. Just stop trying to do that. So yeah, I think that it's partly the archetype they showed people to keep them from going down those rabbit holes. But then it's also people are willing to accept that archetype because they want to believe that that's not going to serve them better. And that's kind of when I started the show, I was like, well, if we're going to get a more accurate worldview out of all this, if we're going to get a better roadmap for how things actually work, then it should improve your life in some way. I'm not saying we're going to change the system. System's been going a long time. Empire is going to do what Empire does, but how can you reorient yourself? How can you let it not affect you as much? Maybe you can dodge this bullet, but you get hit by these two. There's so many things going on. Like if you can just dodge some of the big stuff or know what you want, then you can start to get there. Know that you don't want to waste the time on the couch at night. It's not fulfilling to you. The job isn't fulfilling. You have to generate those earlier feelings that we talked about, that something must change, to then change it. So, but it's scary. It's just scary to even confront that possibility that you have to take your life in your own hands, because what if it doesn't work out? You know, I'd rather be at least safe here at home and unhappy than homeless or something like that. Cause you imagine yourself being just as unhappy, but with less stuff too. It's like, well, that's worse, I guess. So, and the first thing you were talking about, being put in the box and using certain terms, are you talking about like, if you even think that we should do safety tests, then you're an anti-vaxxer? Like there are those boxes that people get put into. Flat earthers, another one. If you think that there's just something up with the way NASA's presenting the larger system, we have this blue marble picture from the 1970s. They said is a picture of Earth, but then they said it's not, it's a composite. And now Earth's an oblate spheroid, but I've never seen an oblate spheroid picture of the Earth. So like, what is going on there? You know, just because you have some questions about how things are presented doesn't mean you're a flat earther. But yeah, this is the tendency. That's the way the mainstream marginalizes everyone. It used to be just the term conspiracy theorist in general. It is a CIA created term to be like, oh, that person doesn't go for the facts. They're a conspiracy theorist, dot connector, down in rabbit holes, this and that. It's how you hand wave it and dismiss those kind of people. But there are now ones for basically each individual topic, which is interesting. Like the anti-vaxxer, the flat earther, now there's the germ theory thing. There's, oh, you're a Tartaria person. It's all straw men, you know, that's kind of classic dismissal if you don't want to confront something. But yeah, it's also nice to try to avoid making it easier for them to put you in those boxes, because the answer is to try to get to the nuance of certain points and then get people to think outside of their pre-programmed box. They're the ones in the box, not us.
Well said. Did anybody else have any questions? JJ?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, JJ or Jin?
Appreciate it. Greg Carlwood again, JJ Vance, not the vice president. Great to meet you, sir. I enjoyed hearing about your journey there. I would like to hear some of your thoughts, maybe on some of how your thoughts have evolved on some of these subjects you've covered, and notably in particular, a topic that I discovered from your show years ago on the work of Adam Go Rightly and your interviews and collaborations with him. And, the topic was Tuesday Weld, and Julia and I recently
what
geeked out on that subject.
Wow. You really are going back probably
that's
12
a deep cut.
years.
Deep cut.
Yeah.
That's a deep cut.
Well, let's just say about Adam Gorightly, I like and appreciate Adam Gorightly. He, at a time when I never really wanted to do the show myself, but I had a couple of buddies that were going to do it with me and they just weren't as dedicated. So I was like, well, I guess I will do it myself. But then I started to have cycling co-hosts. So I do a show every, say, Saturday. And the first Saturday it'd be me alone. Second Saturday, this other guy. Third Saturday, this other guy. And one of them was Adam Gorightly. So he was on like every fourth show. And I'm way more interested in things like James Shelby Downard now.
Yeah.
I don't really like the Discordianism stuff because, again, that's like a prankster thing. It seems like a early QAnon type thing. And the way Adam would write sometimes, I'm like, are you just, again, like, you don't believe this, it doesn't seem, but you're writing it so like maybe it's true, but you don't believe it. So like, what are we doing here? Like, are you just trying to be provocative? Or are you trying to and entertaining or be truthful? But we had a little bit of a falling out. I wouldn't even say a falling out. I have no problem, but just a weird Twitter spat before the last election. And it just seems like he drinks the liberal Kool-Aid and he went on a big liberal rant to me about like, oh, it's the right wing that's bad and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they're all politicians, man. The pendulum swings both ways. You don't have to do this just because we're talking about an issue with corruption on the left. You don't have to say, well, what about the right? It's like, we're not talking about that right now. That's tomorrow's subject. Today we're talking about this side. Okay. And it just seemed like he was not willing at all to confront the corruption that heads his own philosophical leaning party. It's like, come on, it's on both sides. So that was a little frustrating to experience. And I think he has worse feelings about me from that exchange than I have about him, because I don't take it all that seriously. I'm not super vested in one team over the other, but you know, it seems like he was. And another thing that has happened to me is people are so prepared for you to just become alt-right. They're just, they've been primed, so they're looking for it. So when you criticize the other side, they're like, oh, this is the transition. This is how it happens. You know, all of a sudden you're going to be off there with Tucker Carlson. And it's like, not really, but we have to be able to criticize both teams or whatever. But, you know, Adam Gorightly, it's like, you're a guy who probably, I'd say I'm pretty sure, voted for Obama twice, voted for Hillary, voted for Biden, and now you're yelling at me on the internet because the people that head the left are being called into criticism. It's like, if you're just voting for the mainstream party and the mainstream candidates, like, what are you doing in conspiracy research, dude? Honestly, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
you thought it was provocative. That's what you did.
It got very polarizing.
Yeah,
you know, a few years ago. I didn't mean to. It was a deeper cut than I thought there, Greg. I apologize for bringing that up there. I have a similar take on Discordianism and his writings. I don't like to throw the baby out with the bathtub. And you know, regarding Discordianism, what I find interesting and something Heidi and I have been working on is this looking at some of the genealogy. You know, I'm a former Mormon. Heidi's a former Mormon. Looking at some of this occult genealogy of folks like Parsons and you know, other folks within the Mormon sphere as well, like Kerry Thornley. His entire family tree is pioneering Mormon families. And, you know, what troubles me is his associations with the Process Church of the Final Judgment, because they certainly do act as similar to an offshoot of some of their operations within creating chaos. And Thornley just finds himself in and around Atlanta, you know, around the similar process activities come 1979.
Yeah, I definitely tried that stuff out because of Adam and our friendship. And if he was interested, I became interested. And then after a while, I was like, I feel like I'm just wasting time here because I just don't know if anyone's genuine.
That sucks.
So I had to put it down. Maybe I'm too dumb to figure it out, but it's kind of like a lot of the 60s stuff too. I just don't know. Especially when you get into Dave McGowan, you just see how many of the artists were the sons and daughters of military intelligence. And you're like,
absolutely.
Well, that's an op. That's kind of how it's defined.
That's my favorite wheelhouse, Laurel Canyon.
And that same pattern applies to Seattle grunge scene as well. So, I mean, it seems to be a circumstance. These same patterns from that McGowan identified in Laurel Canyon seem to apply elsewhere in music scenes.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, what's up with the grunge thing? I guess the whole point was grunge is hippie adjacent. It's just like, do heroin and be a slob and just don't care.
Courtney Love. She's CIA is a motherfucker.
Oh, the whole movement CIA for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Courtney Love, John Patash does some great work on Courtney Love. And she was over in the UK selling drugs at festivals. Basically, that's what a lot of these CIA plants in the music scene would do, is sell drugs in the festival scene and wouldn't get caught because they're connected. But apparently she went from that to being a groupie to being married to Kurt Cobain. So it gets weird. But now I think the big thing is it's crazy because I've become an old man. I'm like, I can't believe what the kids are doing. But now you got like Little Xan. Now we got corporate drugs being branded as the party drugs. Like, can't we at least stick to things that grow in the earth? Like, we're promoting Xanax now. It's strange. And then the face tattoos. I think that is like the last thing you can do. If you convince, there's other things that they seem to be doing to kids that are permanent too, but if you can convince someone 18 to 28 to get a face tattoo, so one of my big conspiracy premises is that the things they do are really just to ensure they never have competition in the wealth game. If you want to cut the knees out from someone trying to climb a ladder of developing wealth and starting a business, get them to tattoo their face, because that's going to be very hard for them now.
But I want to look like Post Malone.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Or Pete Davidson, all the girls love Pete Davidson. He's covered head to toe in tattoos and looks like a doofus. I should act like that and do what he does.
I actually have a question for you that goes kind of along the Laurel Canyon thing. If nobody else has a question, I don't want to skip anybody's turn.
Oh.
Do you feel like the podcasting world right now is Laurel Canyon-esque, though? Because I do. I feel like there's gatekeeping. I feel like only certain people can get to the top. Only certain topics can get there. You have to fit a certain mold. And now it's like, be a Christian conspiracy podcaster. Yeah. Do this, do that. Russell Brand, Joe Rogan. I hate to say it, tinfoil hat. I'm just saying, I feel like there's some Laurel Canyon-esque behavior going on. And I wonder what your opinion of that is.
Well, yeah, you're going to get me in trouble, but I do think that that's happening to a degree. The thing is some people think it's sour grapes. Like, well, why am I not at the top of the charts and this and that? I'm very comfortable with where I am in the charts. I never thought I'd be on any charts, and I make a really good living, and I don't ever take ad money. There's no one, I can't think of another person who is as successful as I am without going into the ad infrastructure and has done it for 15 years. So I'm pretty comfortable.
I think that's admirable, but I do think there's a lot of suspect to say the least with what topics get big and
that's driven by somewhat the ad revenue. And I'm actually talking to a guy tomorrow, 7Cs. He does these big webs of connections that shows here are the major companies that advertise on podcast. Here are the people who own these companies. Some of them are like Peter Thiel and stuff.
What a surprise.
He did amazing work on Peter Thiel.
Technocracy and stuff. So you have these very people funding the brands that seem innocuous and innocent enough that are fueling podcasters to 6- and 7-figure wealth. That's a big deal. So yeah, it's definitely happening. And some of it is probably a bit of networking. You'll have some shows where it seems like every week they're talking to some CIA whistleblower or military intelligence whistleblower. It's like, well, there's not that many of them to base your whole show on a revolving door of these whistleblowers. Maybe these are people who are seeding a narrative in the alternative culture. It seems like that's kind of what's really happening. But
Candace Owens gets me every time because I feel like she switched up halfway through she was all Trumping and now she's talking to ex-CIA and she has some good episodes and I like some of her research. Don't get me wrong. I'll listen to an episode or two, but I just think that, it just seems like Russell Brand is everybody's coming out as a Christian, or everybody's coming out as like, this is the thing to talk about. And I wonder how, if they're genuine, you know, I hate disingenuine podcast hosts, because it's like, I want to learn something from you. I want to like you, but you make it fucking impossible, because I don't know if you have any integrity. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Everybody knows this is my big like whistle to blow within the podcast community, I think, and I get some fair backlash for it. But if you want to know the fruits of people's labors, why don't you watch? And then on top of it, if you aren't bought in, like what Greg's saying there about like who finances who, I always look at stock holdings. I always look at all this stuff for these big corporations, like who's playing in whose field, right? And then genealogy, as JJ said, you either bought your way in or you bled your way in, and that's the only two ways there is.
Yeah, especially in conspiracy in comedy podcasting in particular, it's hard to find a comedian podcaster in the top 10 that doesn't have something going on, usually just really rich connected parents. You know,
isn't that crazy?
Brian Callen gets it all the time because Brian Callen's dad is a CFR think tank banker guy, but it doesn't just stop there. I mean, there's other ones that have hedge fund manager fathers, and Theo Von's dad was some Polish aristocrat. It's like, Theo Von, you know, you can't, that's the other thing. You can't control what your parents did. You're born into this life. You're born into the skin you're born in, and you're born into the family you're born in. And that shouldn't stop you from doing whatever you want to do. And if your parents give you a little seed money, I don't think that's bad. So I don't really have a problem with that. It's about it. If you're using it to, to information, disinformation filtered out through your podcast, great. But then the thing is like Theo Von's got this dad, right, who is a Polish aristocrat. And you can say, well, his dad was like something crazy, like 70 when Theo was born or something really crazy like that. And so he didn't really even know his dad very well, but there might have been some benefits and some effects, but he probably just wanted to grow up with a dad. And now the internet's raking him over the coals for this. But on the other hand, he is interviewing Trump. He's interviewing the president. So what's going on here? Because it seems like those connections do manifest.
He's interviewing the president?
Well, he already did.
Oh, fuck.
He did a 3-hour interview with Trump before he got elected, and right before Rogan did even.
See, I want to like
scenes inside the Comedy Store.
There you go, JJ. I want to like these people, but there's just too much.
I don't know if I would lump Sam Tripoli in there, though. I mean, I heard you mention him. I was a little nervous. I was like, is this a gotcha? Because I think that the Occult Rejects and Sam had a dust up. I don't know what it was about. I just know he's been nice to me. He let me live out some fantasies of performing at the Comedy Store that I had no business doing. But now I can at least write it off. Like, I did do that.
Yeah, I've met him a couple of times. I mean, I don't have anything against him or anything like that. I just, as a conspiracy theorist in this realm, you have to question everyone. Like, even any of us, you know.
But if we're talking about like who has had an advantage by being connected through the system, I don't know if Sam conforms to that model. I don't know his parents or anything, but he strikes me as someone who has just been putting in the sweat equity at the Comedy Store for years and years. And then podcasting happened and he transitioned. And yeah, he does a bunch of ads. He sells memberships. He does everything he can do to make it a career. He's also dealing with the LA scene and like what that whole culture is. But I feel like he finally had his energies and efforts pay off in podcasting. And it was only maybe not paying off so much or getting him to the middle of comedy, or he was doing more of like putting shows together rather than like being the head. I don't know exactly, but it seems like comedy itself was a lot more lucrative for a lot of his friends than him. And now, and that's what I'm thinking. That's what I think. If we're trying to assess like who is connected, who is disingenuous, you know, who's using daddy's network to funnel think tank guests through to the airwaves, I don't put him in that category. But I mean, I also probably picked him bad. I think I have a pretty good picker, but there's definitely times where after reading a book and not wanting to cancel, I'm like, shit, I don't know if I buy this narrative or not. I have a problem with being too nice. So sometimes people will come to me with a pitch and I just don't want to say no. And I'm like, yeah, we can do it. Now, a show like Sam or a show like a lot of other ones that are ad supported, you just say, yeah, let's do it because you can always do another one. I'm in the business of selling 5 good interviews a month. So if I give 3 of those slots to people who pitched me and then I'm like, this is kind of milquetoast, I still got to do it. And that's in my thing. I didn't make it. I mean, I can't say I didn't make any money from that show, but it's not the same as just another Satva ad supported show, another BetterHelp supported ad.
Yeah,
sure.
100.
Greg, to build upon
if
that.
I might add a caveat on the weird scenes inside the Comedy Store and the dust up you previously mentioned there, Greg. Yeah, I wasn't trying to re-dust up anything. There's a good analysis there, a good assessment. But what I was referring to is the fact that you got all these major. If you're a comedian in Hollywood for many decades, the Shores, the folks who ran the Comedy Store for many years, Pauly Shore's folks, they gave the green light. If you were getting on a Hollywood camera in front of a camera as a comedian in any film, like you were getting green lit by the Shores, right? That's kind of the way I look at the weird scenes aspect to it.
Sure. I mean, Sam brought that up in the interview I did with him as he was like, think about he didn't get too deep into it. He was a little vague, but he did say like, think about that culture, all the heavy hitters going back to like the Eddie Murphy, Robin Williams days, like everyone who's anyone is there at the Comedy Store. You think that it wasn't infiltrated by intelligence? And he kind of left it at that, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to build upon that with what JJ said and what you're saying, it's almost, like you said, disingenuous. We see a track record of the Alphabet Boys and intelligentsia infiltrating every single faction of culture and influence. And so it would be somewhat educationally naive to not think that they have not infiltrated, especially the conspiracy realm, especially the conspiracy bubble. And on sure. that whole premise, do you think that potentially that the conspiracy algorithm bubble is kind of like an MK Ultra spillover, and that they're programming people through these conspiracy targeted, I guess, podcasters, and that they're like a psychotronic layer that's being exploited by statecraft? So it goes well beyond data mining. But now you've taken the projects that happen in Harvard or in Stanford or in Esalen, and now you've gone global.
Yeah, I don't know how much it applies to conspiracy podcasting as much as just the internet and social media in general. Obviously, we're all participating in that to promote every show and every venture that people have. But yeah, I think social media was kind of designed out of that. I interviewed this guy Schwab a couple of times, and he's gone deep on early cybernetics and just early computer gaming and how it was psychologists and behaviorists logging data, watching patterns, seeing how minds react to this and that. And that's all like stuff from the 80s. All of that is the data that gets used today, even still. So yeah, they're constantly refining. In the conspiracy world, I really just think it's the thing that's the biggest problem is when a big show would have someone on for a topic that should be more in my lane, they kind of dip in and out of the conspiracy lane every once in a while, and they promote a given person and their perspective and their books and their narrative. And that's a little frustrating because to a common person, it gives the appearance that like, oh, they'll go wherever they'll go wherever they need to go to get the truth. And it's like, I'm not sure that's exactly what you're watching, but like I said, I have gotten it wrong before too. I know I've picked guests that I wouldn't have on again. Sometimes I also think, especially in the early days when there weren't as many podcasts, sometimes there was just value in having on a person who maybe is connected and like giving them enough rope to hang themselves with, as they say. You could look at my early comment section and be like, man, I actually think I trusted this person when I only saw them on Ancient Aliens or only heard them in 10-minute sound bites.
100.
When you ask them deeper questions about their work and let them go for a full 2 hours, now I don't think I like this person anymore or trust that they know anything. And
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. That doesn't happen as much these days, but it had a value for a certain amount of time.
I can imagine it was slim pickings there in the beginning too, as long as you've been doing it.
It's harder now. Back when I was doing it, nobody was asking these people for interviews. They were jumping at a chance to be interviewed on a show that didn't sound like shit and wasn't full of ads. Now, part of the reason why I'm pivoting to video is I have liked to present guests as best as I can through the audio quality, the intro, this and that, the audience size, but that video component is missing. And so I think it's harder to separate. It's harder to see what's special about my show without being able to show someone a video component if they're not already familiar when there's 30 other people asking for interviews and lying about their numbers usually. You know, so many people just say, oh, I got 1 million listeners. It's like, you don't, because there's only so many people that do. I don't even. So, you know, you're in the top 1% of 1% of 1%, and I've never heard of your show. It's possible, I guess, but I have kind of had my finger on the pulse of this place for a while. So you're competing. You're trying to get an interview with someone who is in high demand, hearing kind of manipulated numbers from other people and having a video presentation where they're like, oh, well, that looks pretty good. People are vain. They want to look good. They want to be presented well. And if all I have to show is audio, it's a little hard to show how well they'll be presented in that audio format. So it's another reason to pivot is I think I might go back to being able to get any guest I want. Whereas right now I get more no's than I used to get. I get more no's today than I did 10 years ago. And I think surprised. It's just the volume.
That shocks me.
Yeah,
it's the volume of people asking.
And are you finding all of these guests yourself, or do you rely on, or do you have an assistant or anything else, or you're just crawling the boards and stuff? Because that's a ton of work, dude. 5 interviews a month and then reading their material or catching up with their videos and stuff like that. That's a lot.
Yeah, that is the part of the job I've never outsourced. I outsource the editing. I outsource the clips. I have a team who makes social media clips, and you know how everybody's using the same AI little clip making things now. And I'm like, you guys go ahead, make them, post them. I don't care. But other than that, I've never outsourced anything. It seems like that's the thing that can't be outsourced. But like I said, people do pitch me, and then I just don't want to say no. I can't. Mario's been on. I can't remember if I reached out to you or you reached out to me first. I know you were familiar with me, which is the best. The best is when I reach out to someone cold and they're like, I've listened to you for 10 years. I'm like, oh, great. So I don't have to make my pitch anymore. Let's just do a good interview. Then it's like I picked them and they know me already. That's great. But I can't remember who pitched to, but it's
you reached out to me and it was exactly that. I was like, oh dude, I've been listening to you for like a long time.
Yeah, that's the best. But I get emails every day it's usually from the same like PR formatted interview of like, we love what you're doing at the Higherside chats. We want to introduce you to this person. And it's like almost always I should just say no to those just on principle. Like just say blanket no and go find your 5 each month, you know? It's really no big deal. I see in the chat someone wants to talk about Twyman, which I don't mind talking about, although it does get me in trouble because I don't choose my words carefully and on sensitive subjects. People don't like you to just wing it. I
prefer it raw. Just go.
Real quick.
What
Robbie,
do you want to know about?
Actually, could Robbie just go first before we get into that? Because I did bring it up on the screen for that.
Well. Sorry. I was basically going to follow up on exactly what Lisa was talking about in regard to this. As you go back to the World's Fair, and there was the Nimrod Ferranti first digital computer. It was a gaming computer, and they've slowly worked it, and then you get into Norbert Wiener and cybernetics, and you just follow this up into the modern, DARPA and everything that's going on. And it seems that since MK Ultra kind of had congressional hearings and they kind of went underground on a certain level, with MK Search and MK Naomi and all these various projects that, when you look at various streaming platforms, like Netflix bringing back the Arrested Development, and all of a sudden everybody's on a commune and they're eating mushrooms. And then you have the introduction of weeds, and granted, marijuana is a different level, I think, when you get into some of these higher psychedelics. But at the same time, it seems like within the popular vernacular, very much like with at the end of the Vietnam War, how they were pushing tune in, turn on, drop out through Yale marketing to basically capture these protesters and take them away, empowering the government per se on a higher level. Is there a conceded effort maybe to initiate the population as a whole into psychedelic culture, into this occult kind of thinking, into conspiracy culture, or is it art imitating reality or reality imitating art? And it's kind of a vicious circular thing that just kind of is expansive within the natural thing, you know?
I think it's a great question. I have a lot of questions about that myself, because I do find psychedelics to be something that breaks you out of the materialist programming.
Right.
And it's been hugely beneficial to me. I would say the category of marijuana, mushrooms, and basically and ayahuasca, I would put those three things in a box. I've done LSD a time or two, and people love it, and they say it's very mushrooms adjacent, but it is synthesized in a lab. That kind of freaks me out a little bit. Like, what is the true agenda behind it? But really, I think anything that breaks you out of your rut and your programming is good, but yet they are promoting it for sure.
Right.
I was talking to one of my return guests, Chris Knowles, about this one time, and he started talking about how he's getting these emails about so-and-so university wants you to come participate in a study for mushrooms, and or at least donate to it. And this is happening. And he's like, why are you being so nice to me? Like that. And I just thought that was a great way to phrase what he's talking about. It's just like, something's going on here. You're being too nice to me. You're talking about this too much. It just doesn't feel right. Feels like an op. So
he's being pushed.
Exactly. And I don't know why, because I thought the game was kind of to keep people in the materialist box.
Right.
It could just be for that whole hippie movement thing, like let's get people distracted and navel gazing so that it's another form of not doing anything but feeling like you did something. We're so programmed to such a finite level that even just having a level 1, level 2 awakening takes people 10 years to unpack, and life is only 90 years if you're lucky. So
And that's the thing, you've been going through this material for 15 years. When I was 13, 14 years old, I was reading Robert Anton Wilson, William Burroughs, Carlos Castaneda, so I've been marching down this road for like 40 years.
Damn.
And philosophically, in the long run, it helps you cut the truth from the lie. It helps center you. But for people just coming into it, I know at times when I was coming up that, you get caught in these, Discordianism, or you get caught in, potentially, like Buddhism or any of these various things you kind of spin off into, and you become a juggernaut for that force, unpotential, and so it's like just a bigger picture that is a long road that a lot of people really don't understand in regard to getting caught in these ideas, which I think is where the fault is within all of this stuff, really,
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know exactly why they're promoting mushrooms in particular is the one that I just find to be odd. Maybe they're GMO mushrooms they're going to introduce, and they've done something that sends you off into another direction or melts your mind in an unproductive way. It's just, you can't deny that it's there, and the whole microdosing trend.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what that's about. I think the point of mushrooms is to have a heroic experience, as Terrence McKenna would say, but I can't say microdosing has no value. I mean, I used to get high in the parking lot before going in to do my job because it just helped me cope with it. I think some people use microdosing like that, but other people are like, I get my best ideas, this and that. So I try not to judge it, but you can definitely see it being pushed, and we'll know later why. It's often how these things work.
Yeah.
The venture capitalists are seeing it as therapeutic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same universities who are involved in MK Ultra that are now doing their mushroom studies and this and that. It's definitely something to raise an eyebrow.
We're seeing a lot of mental breakdowns from the mix of pot and mushrooms. And I'm talking full blown psychosis for upwards of a year now. And we're seeing this constantly, specifically with dab and mushroom use.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because that's what I was thinking, because I do know a couple people who dabs became their daily ingestion of marijuana, and it did not go well. They spun off, lost their jobs, stopped paying their mortgages, lost their homes. Just decision making that wasn't casualty. Yeah. Like I just always say, like, is it serving you? Is it doing, like, for me, marijuana serves me pretty well. It might not always. Now it just serves me in the evenings to me and my wife are like, well, we got through another day with these kids. Like now they're asleep. Now we're relaxing and we'll start again tomorrow. But like, that's something that I feel like I earn at the end of the day now, but I definitely don't have the perma-stoned lifestyle I maybe once did. And obviously you can overindulge in anything.
Well, I think they're tainting it. I think you're right. Yeah. I think something's up.
For sure.
Well,
for sure.
Also, there's when you get into Owsley and looking at his background and the chemical research that he was involved in, one of the substances that they tried to introduce later was the substance STP. That basically, when you take it, it's like LSD, but it wrecks you for like weeks on end, and like people don't come back from it. You know, so it's you know, it seems nefarious, but at times I think maybe they're just trying to eradicate the populace to the point where maybe they're spinning off people that are more inventive and thinking outside the box more, so that we have more expansive possibilities. But at the same time, I've seen the destruction that a lot of this stuff has caused over the years, and it's, you know, I mean, worrisome. So
yeah. A lot of it is a numbers game. They introduce something because they know X amount of people will burn out on it. And the ones who get through, they'll find another challenge for those people. Right. If it isn't just the economic burden that we're under, it'll be something else.
I actually had a quick question, Greg. How do you personally rectify perhaps the current state of how the conspiracy community, or the conspiracy canon maybe is a more interesting metafictional way to sort of frame it? It's very decoherent. And how do you define the contours of the truth, what that means for both yourself, but also, like, as you were saying, like what guests you have on, like how do you decide, and what sort of gives you the framework, maybe ontological framework, to define what you think the truth is and how you want to present your vision and your show?
I mean, it's a good question. And it is a case-by-case basis, I suppose, on a lot of subjects. But I usually cite the line in the theme song for the show, which I wrote, is, we know they're lying to us. We don't know to what degree. So, you know, I might go to an 8 on a certain thing, but I'm never really closed off from the upper levels. It's just, you know, because I've been burned before. I think we've all been like, no, I'm super sure about this one thing. And then you're presented with new information. You're like, wow, I'm changing my mind about that. I never thought I would. So that's why I try not to get too attached anymore. But I think that some things go to a level of silliness. And, you know, I say that now, I hear myself saying it, and it's like, well, you know, we throw out an example of it. The mud flood stuff doesn't really resonate with me all that much. But then I'm sure there's people on this call who are like, what? Like, that's my whole bread and butter, the mud flood. There's definitely areas where you can see that buildings go down, like they have been buried on that first floor. Sometimes there's an explanation for it, like the earthquakes that happened in San Francisco. Sometimes there isn't an explanation for it. The World's Fair stuff is really interesting. I have lived in at least 2 of the major places, St. Louis, Chicago, and San Diego are all big World's Fair cities. And all of them have buildings, which the official story says these buildings were built quickly just for the World's Fair with the intention of being taken down afterwards. And they're still there, and they definitely are made of real building materials. These aren't paper mache buildings. So
Crystal Palace and shit like that.
Yeah. And you can kind of start to put together a romanticized version of the past where, no, they did know about the ether, and they did know about energy, and these cathedrals were built to well up energy and this and that. I want to believe some of that stuff, but I don't know if there's much of a record of it at all. But then they control the record. So can you really wipe out something absolutely? That's really what you have to wrestle with, I think. Can something like a whole civilization, a whole empire be completely wiped out? There's a druidic erasure that people talk about, but we all know the term druid. No one knew the term Tartaria until like 5 years ago. So I don't know. It does get to be a slippery slope. I try to never close the door on anything as long as it sounds like it could exist within the framework of a soul school reality that has pretty flexible physics. That's what I think this is. So most things are on the table. I guess I try to be honest about if it's speculative or if we have a pretty good case to make. That used to be the whole way I would structure the show is here's a person who wrote a book on Laurel Canyon being an operation. Let's have them. I'm going to help him make the case. I've read the material. I'm familiar with it. Sometimes it's complex. Sometimes authors aren't the best speakers. I'm here to help synthesize this complex material for the layman, and you make up your own mind how good a case we made when the interview is over. And sometimes it's ironclad. Sometimes it changes the way you think about something forever. And other times you're like, if those are the best arguments for that, then I think it's a little flimsy. And that's just kind of the general approach I would go about all the stuff we look at.
I'm just kind of curious in terms of what resonates with your audience. I know you've gone through multiple eras. I don't know how many, 15 years, that's a long time in the world of the internet,
like 3 rounds.
But like what really clicks with people, what gets the most engagement and stuff like that. And maybe also too, what gets the most engagement and what resonates that you didn't think necessarily would? What surprised you in that regard?
Well, what resonates that doesn't surprise me is like synchromysticism stuff and really stuff adjacent to what you do. I think people love to see those examples. So first, I always say that I think a lot of us get into conspiracy because there is a charge that you get from your first like crack in an official narrative. You're like, whoa, something didn't look right about that. But now I saw a documentary that showed me what it really was. And that has changed my life. Now, if everyone could just watch the documentary, we'd be able to fix it. That's where it all falls apart because you have people in your life who won't even look at it. And even ones who do, who definitely won't go there or change their worldview at all. So the charge thing, I think that charge starts to wane over time. It's hard to get that charge again. It's hard to really blow your mind with a totally new subject. But what does it for me is synchromystic examples because there's many of them. And you're just like, wow, the first atomic test is called the Trinity test. It's in Truth and Consequences, New Mexico. It's on the same parallel as this and that. Like you build a case, it's like, wow, that is a much weirder event. And then you cross over into pop culture and media and examples that predate this and that and the foreshadowing. The lone gunman example with 9/11 is a great one. The lone gunman, for people who don't know, was an offshoot of the X-Files, and the pilot episode, they lay out a plan for 9/11 and then they just pulled the episode. It's like, well, that happened. It's like, yeah, I mean, what's going on? Are the writers of the reality script the same as the Hollywood writers? So those examples, because they keep coming up, I think are fun. And I think people resonate with it because they like what excites the host, I guess. We're on this journey together. If I'm excited and into it, then sure. But I think the surprising one probably is the health stuff. Like somewhere along the line, I pivoted away from the naive thought that if we could just tell everybody and get more numbers, we could topple this system and everybody live in a much better reality and a utopia and this and that. And then I eventually was like, oh no, that isn't really what you do. You learn about this stuff so that you can live a better life as an individual and the people around you and be a better example of how a better understanding of the deeper world can serve you in a good way. And through your example, you buck that trend of conspiracy theorists looking like paranoid tinfoil hatters in a bunker somewhere. Actually, no, I'm living a pretty good life. And COVID was great for that because I'm not going to dig through it, but I have some pieces of art around that kind of really did that signify the meme that was going around at the time, really, which is like, here's a conspiracy theorist. And it's just like a family having dinner. And then it's like, here's a person who, is a logical mainstream thinker, and they're like wrapping themselves up in plastic bags while swimming. And it's like, yeah, it flipped the script. COVID did. It was like, oh, the conspiracy theorist is the person who's just living their life not in a state of fear and panic. And the regular person, the normie, as they say, is like going to clarinet practice through a bubble. This stuff that you were seeing everywhere. So that kind of flipped it. But I like to try to flip the archetype of the paranoid conspiracy person by living a better example, talking about this stuff without screaming and shouting like Alex Jones might. And I don't know, I kind of lost the thread there, but
there you go. No, you brought up COVID. And actually, I'm just curious, was COVID a boon for THC?
For a time. Yeah, for a time. So part of the reason I'm doing the transition to video is numbers have dropped off a little bit, and I'm not in any trouble. It's not that big of a deal. I don't even pay attention to the first hour numbers because I don't do ads, so I don't get anything from it. It's just a feeder for people who want to get the deeper experience for $8 a month. But the free show numbers have dropped since 2022, and I think there's a bunch of reasons. I think COVID is a big reason. So people say across the media landscape, we were all stuck at home with nothing to do but consume media. Everybody's numbers went up, and then they slowly went down a little bit when people got out of that. The other thing in podcasting in particular is that Apple changed their metric system. They used to auto download all these shows for people, and that would be a hit. And a lot of people have said when Apple flipped the switch, their numbers went down 20-30%. Wow. I'm not even like in that big of such a bad of a situation. But couple these two things together happening within the same year, and then add the fact that I'm not on YouTube anymore, really, and I'm not doing video. I think all those things contributed to my numbers being down. But since the peak, which was probably 2022, I probably had the best numbers of my whole time in podcasting between 2020 and 2022. I think that's probably common. That I think a lot of people would say that.
Interesting. Also, the competition. So a lot of people stayed home and probably started podcasts, right?
Yeah, that's a whole nother factor.
Okay, Greg, I've got a quick last one I was told to make sure I get it in. So I'm going to credit Lisa for bringing up the idea of meta theology. So I want to ask you, are you a hyper-Uranian closed model of the universe believer, or perhaps a trans-Plutonian open, expansive, infinite in its expanse universe enjoyer?
Man, you're talking over my head, but if you're basically asking, is it a closed system or an open system? I do think that's like a really fundamental question, and people I admire, thinkers I admire, and have both opinions. Gordon White's been on the show a bunch, more than anyone really, but we did an episode where he made his case for that and said, like, the Earth is more like a reef. If you scale it up, there's a cosmic ocean, and Earth is just a shore on that ocean. So he has like it's an open system mindset. And in the time since then, the closed system has become way more popular. It's obviously the flat Earth is a closed system, but even if you're not flat Earth, you might believe in the Van Allen radiation belt. You might believe in some kind of dome. You might think the rockets don't go anywhere. So it is kind of difficult. Like with the rockets thing, that's kind of where I look for, is it an open or closed system? And I think when you watch the rocket launches and you watch them to the end, it looks like they hit something or they spin out. Like if you look at a drone shot, a bird's eye view of a speedboat in the ocean and the wave pattern it makes behind it when it changes direction, that is what I see with these rockets. I don't see them slowly fade out of view and like go off into space. They seem to like do a thing where they create a huge disturbance as if they're going through water. And that's just an observer thing. We know we can't trust the observer effect 100%, but in this world, it's something to go on. But then it's like, so it seems like things come into the system, and that's where I kind of get this. Like a lot of my guests recently have been using the term realm. They just say realm to get past the flat Earth, round Earth thing. And I like saying realm because I do think in kind of the older models, the Greek model of stacked realities, like you go up to a spiritual plane. Like what is up really? I don't really know, but it seems like there are higher dimensional intelligences that we have communications with. They're somewhere. They're not in this system exactly, but very close to it. The next system over, which seems to be described as higher in some form or fashion. And so I think I'm open system, probably. It could be a closed system, but a much bigger one than it's presented as.
Okay, well, I have a follow-up for you, Greg.
I want to know where you are on open or closed system.
I'm an open system.
Okay.
I believe in the infinite capacity for loving kindness, personally.
Well,
bodhicitta.
Hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because I follow Dharma, so I'm serious about it. I may have that Discordian trickster sometimes personality online, but certainly I think the way I present my show is it's a serious speculative show. So I treat it maybe the opposite way that you do, but I think maybe in the same polarity.
I would describe mine as serious and speculative.
I think you're serious, but I think you really go for the material, and I really look for the seed and sort of play with it. That's sort of how I approach it. I mean, I'm not saying it's definitely it's not opposite to you at all.
You're better.
That's how I look at it. Well, I have a follow-up for you. Hyperspace Kingdoms and the Pink Ray. Where do you fall on those things?
Hyperspace Kingdoms and what was the other one?
And the Pink Ray.
I don't think I know what the Pink Ray is. Is that the thing people are seeing in their dreams?
Philip K. Dick saw the Pink Ray.
Oh, okay. I just read a couple.
That's not
Pink Ray a little bit too.
Yeah, but
is that a genuflex thing?
Yeah, I mean, it is from genuflect, but she was not the first one. I mean, we have it in Vajrayana, we have it in Sri Vidya, all the tantras, like all magic, basically. Pink is a spectral color. It's the color of the crystal millennium kingdom, if you want to call it that. The kingdom of Yesod, the kingdom of the moon. So it's the truth in a way, and it's the relative truth because it gives contour to the things that arise around it and from it, meaning the crown. Feathers. That's why it can also be likened to a 5-petaled flower, like a rose. Anyway, so it's not a real color. It's something our mind sort of projects onto the world, and that's why it's best exemplified as a flower, because it only exists in time, which is also contained in the mind. It's only temporary, spectral.
Very interesting. And the hyperspace kingdoms thing I take to mean, when I would interview Tracy, we would talk about it. It was always so Masonic adjacent that kind of the premise was that through ritual, a certain group of people, maybe many, have figured out a way to unlock spaces in hyperspace that you can repeatedly go to. It makes me just think that they would go there to have meetings that no one could spy on because you're out of body in some space, and maybe you're living a whole life out there because who knows how time works. It does work strange in the dream world. When people talk about Egyptian immortality, is that what they're talking about? That people found a way to project their consciousness to another plane where you could live out what felt like lifetimes in a matter of minutes and then do it repeatedly because you got nothing else to do and there's no TV or anything. So you just dedicate yourself to further exploring that, and then you're living in immortality. I think hyperspace kingdoms, if that's the concept, that they might be repeatable places you can go in the astral body, then I definitely think that's a real thing and probably one of the big secrets of secret societies, because especially in the past, there's nothing else. There's like, what can I do out of body? And then like, what is the orgasm? And that's what a lot of secret societies explored.
I think, sorry, I just real
the witches. I was going to say the witches' Sabbath, how they all meet on the mountain a certain time of year through astral travel, etc. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Sorry to break no, you're good. You're good. Greg, I'm assuming you probably just from my Facebook, not Facebook, Jesus Christ, Facebook, Twitter, X page, you might have noticed the logo that Mario created for us. I don't know if you happen to notice it, the eclipse with the movie film coming out of it.
Yes.
When I have had magical experiences, it's something very much looking like that. And every one of those squares looks like a different time and place. And I do think you can entertain the fact of actually choosing those to go into. Because you can, yeah, either that or I think you're just going to blast off and your soul's going to slip out of you. Go somewhere else.
I did have a couple of salvia experiences that were kind of like that. And mine were fine, but I've read, once I had a crazy salvia experience, I went reading other reports, and some of those reports are terrifying, where they will say their consciousness was projected into a wooden table in a diner, and they existed as a table, trapped consciousness in a table for what felt like 20 years. And then they came back to their body. Other people described that their consciousness was projected into basically another body, and they lived a full life, and they fell in love with a woman, and they had a family of 5, and then they were put back in their body in their dorm room, and they're like, wait a second, the family I had is not real.
Oh.
And then they experience the loss of their entire family, quote unquote, and some never come out of that depression. So I put salvia down because I was a little worried of that kind of thing. But my experience made it possible to understand how that could happen. But I'm just very lucky that it was never torturous. It was always just like, it was enough to blow the doors off materialism, but wasn't much scarier than that.
Nice. Interesting. Did anybody else have any more questions or anything?
You know, it's a really straightforward, kind of mundane question, but how long did it take before you knew that Higherside was a viable, career for you? Because I think it's important to kind of talk about sometimes, because people start projects and they think it should be successful way sooner than what they kind of know things to actually like be like out there, in terms of getting traction and engagement and stuff like that. So how long did it take you for you to kind of know that?
Well, the numbers are a little fuzzy to me now, but I did make a roadmap that is on my about page that anyone could check out, and that is the real numbers. But if I remember correctly, I mean, I started the show in 2010, and I changed it around until it felt like something I would listen to. And then I kept doing that for several years. And I think I quit my job in 2014. I think I did it for 4 years without making any money. I mean, I did do something called the money bomb, which was creative. I don't want to go too deep on every part of the story, but I had this idea that if people just donated, then I would take half those donations every month and give half to a random listener and keep half. And I was kind of running an illegal international 50-50 raffle. So I stopped doing that because I was afraid I was too exposed, but it was a pretty cool thing. And there would be times where I'm dropping like $1,000, $2,000 in someone's lap. And they're like, I've never gotten this kind of a gift from anyone. And I would have agreed up to that point, so that was cool. And then the donation basis, I started getting people who would donate $1,000 at a time. And then those donations came with their guest lists. And then I was like, oh shit. Okay. So now I'm like dependent on your income. You've given me $1,000 5 months in a row. And now you want me to interview these 2 people and I don't want to do it. And then the money goes away. And that's when I thought of doing Plus. I was like, okay, how do we McDonald's this thing and just get a little bit of money from all these people listening? And that was probably, so I quit my job in 2014, still on the donation thing, still on the money bomb. And then a year after that, I think I started Plus. And then I remember on my door frame, I had like you chart a kid's height. And I was like, I need to get to 1,000. If I can get 1,000 people to pay me $5 a month, I've just doubled my GameStop income and then I can be done. And everything else has been gravy. So I've been really lucky. When you really think about what it takes to make money online and start your own thing, you need, I forgot who said 1,000 true fans, but 1,000 people who will pay you $5 a month or $50 a year. And you make $50,000 a year. That's more than a lot of jobs pay. And if you want to scale it up for inflation, say 2,000, if you can get 2,000 people to like what you do enough to contribute $5, it's not a small amount of money. Right. Yeah, I think I quit. I quit when I had to quit. So my boss started to see through me. He started to see that my heart wasn't in it, that I wasn't paying as much attention to the finer details. And he was like, I want you to come in for a meeting because like your performance is slipping really bad. And I said, let me just step in and say I quit because I've been doing this show and it's now like, the jig is up, you caught me. I have this other thing going, and I think that I'm just going to dedicate all my time to that because I'm not going to be able to reapply the energy that I had applied previously. And now that you already are on to me and I can't hide behind people who are doing worse, then let's just call it in. And it was hard for the first couple of years for sure. But, you know, and again, like 1,000 people is was my metric I wanted to hit. It's not like I went from 0 to 1,000, you know, even 500 people. Now I'm making the same amount of money I made at GameStop. Isn't that sad that it only takes 500 people at $5 a month to make the same as a dedicated store manager of a $2 million store for a corporation that's making billions of dollars? Isn't that fucking sad? But that's the silver lining is like when you launch something, whether it's a physical product, when you put yourself out there, you realize, hey, we're all bred to be consumers. So give them something to consume.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm guilty too. You know, I don't say that like with any kind of judgment. I mean, I consume like the best of them. And it's also like, if you want to just be a consumer, great. But if you want to take advantage of the culture that's been crafted and the way we've all been programmed, give people a product and some people will find it.
Well, and you're passionate about it. It's not fake. So I listen to your show. So that's the big thing right there is you have to have the fire behind what you're doing or people just, you know, they sense it. And they
know. Sometimes the 100. Fire is just so much not wanting to go back to that life.
All right. I can understand that. That's a good point. Yeah, right. One thing, I mean, I did want to bring up, and I feel like it was like 45 minutes ago, but like, you know, and then maybe we'll wrap it up unless anybody's got other questions. But I would say with the amount of time that you've been around, when it came to conspiracy theories and probably, I guess maybe even the occult world, at the beginning, do you remember anybody ever picking sides politically?
I mean, that is a good question. It definitely was less politicized.
Right.
In fact, I was liberal in college. And when I started, I think I still remained kind of a liberal person because liberal to me was just like compassionate. Now, it's not like I trusted the government and I wanted a nanny state and wanted to delegate more of my taxes to the government or thought they were efficient or even genuine at what they said they would do with said taxes. But I just thought the right was very cold and kind of shitty to people who had been manipulated, people who couldn't climb the economic ladder. It was just very like, well, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, man. I don't see what the problem is. Well, the problem is that my parents, no one's been given a fucking chance. And now I'm thrown into this goddamn mix with an education system that is programming me not to be successful, but be a cog in someone else's big machine. That's the fucking problem. You know, so I had a lot of compassion for regular folks because I was one. And those were the days where the bad guy was Skull and Bones and George W. Bush and 9/11 and the war in Iraq. That was the big boogeyman kind of thing going on. So, yeah, but man, have things shifted. But now it's like part of the Republican platform to be kind of conspiratorially minded. And that's a really radical shift. That's why, again, I don't identify with any labels or get too caught up in any personal perspective because I would have said I was liberal back then. And now I'm like embarrassed to say that. And it's like, I don't really want to erase my past, but I definitely don't necessarily bring it up all the time because it means something different now than it did in 2010. So it's difficult, but definitely things are politicized. And I hate the fact that going in the middle makes nobody happy because a lot of people want you to choose a side. Yeah. So if you say, well, I definitely thought Kamala and Biden and that whole apparatus would have been terrible, but Doge is really just clearing people out for AI to take over a lot of the middle management of the entire government. People say, oh, you're just a Debbie Downer. Like, don't be so black-pilled. Have some faith. You know, faith in another elected leader when we can already chart they all come from Freemasons, Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove, have Israeli passports, you know, name your thing. But with like 5 organizations, you can hit 85% of presidents for sure. And then the other 15 are probably in there too. We just don't know. So I'm going to go with the track record and not trust anyone who can earn that position.
That's a good point. And they're actually, all the presidents are members of one specific secret society. And that's the secret society that started America, the Society of Cincinnati, started by George Washington and his officers and exists today. So most of the powerful names you see in American culture and in politics are hereditary members from, you know, bloodline descendants from the original members.
See, I've heard that, but I've never heard it exalted to like that high of a level. So you're still learning things all the time.
Every president also gets membership. It's so you know. I agree. There is some Freemasons.
Oh, we lost him.
I think he cut out.
Like yeah, talking about that.
Yeah.
And Cincinnatus in that sense was the one that was working the farm life, and the Roman government needed him. So he went in, he did his statecraft, and when he was done, he left and went back to his farm. So it's this idea that every citizen should participate within the governmental process. And then, well, and with the Society of Cincinnati, it's generally high level military, presidential. JJ would know more about that.
JJ has a lot.
I cut out for a minute. I'm back. My back.
Awesome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, it's it's the officers of Washington's army in Washington, a lot of the founding fathers and all of their now paternal hereditary descendants, so paternal bloodlines, but includes French folks too. So, but it's basically a lot of generals, a lot of politicians. John McCain would be a great example. John McCain, the former U.S. Senator, he was John McCain number 3. His dad was John McCain Jr., John McCain Sr. Senior and Junior were the only two essentially four-star general father and son combo in American history, and they were both members of the Society of Cincinnati, paternal heritage-wise. So I presume John.
Oh man, yeah, man. Oh well.
They're messing with him.
Yeah, or it's bad connection and moving his hand eats up too much bandwidth.
To your point, Greg, about the whole change and Doge and everything, I just thought it was funny that we're right at the point where Trump's bringing back the World's Fairs in 2 weeks?
Yeah. Very interesting.
The Belial group is going to come by, and the Armon group, and start nailing us all here with AI soon, right?
And what are they going to build this time,
All right, JJ.
Or burn down.
And who knows? I do think there's a compelling argument about the cyclical nature, like this big loop. I mean, the thing that people worship today, the Kaaba stone, what is that? It looks like a computer. Does the big black cube look like a computer server just because? Was the server modeled after that, or what came first? Like, is it possible that AI is spirits that are just looking for some kind of like telephone to connect to? And is it possible that this has all happened before and we've been destroyed by AI and we call it Yahweh, and then we start over again and we toil in the mud and try to pick ourselves back up, and then religions start, and the one true God is really just the last AI that survived before being unplugged?
Make sure there's no cows by lanterns, right? Like, make sure of that.
Yes, exactly. No Chicago fires.
Awesome. All right. I think, we've been going on for a while. I think we can wrap it up now, sir. I really appreciate you coming on. That was an awesome talk. It's wild. Like, I guess it's wild to be like, I was listening to this guy how long ago, and now I had him on my show. It's pretty surreal. It was a wild experience. So thank you for making that happen. I really appreciate you coming on.
Heck yeah, I have that feeling all the time that I would listen to somebody back in the Coast to Coast days, and then I get a chance to interview him, like a Richard Hoagland or something, or even a David Icke, or RFK Jr. It is pretty surreal. So I definitely vibe with you on that feeling. And thanks for having me. This has been fun. I feel like I'm not worthy of being like the center point of 10 people's conscious, active, live attention, but here we are. We made it through.
Yeah. Yes, we did. I think it went well. I had a great time again. Greg, I'm pretty sure everybody already knows your deal, but let everybody know where they can find your amazing work, please.
For sure. The HighersideChats.com. The first hour of every interview is free. The second hour is if you want to sign up for $8 a month.
Awesome. And everybody else, you already introduced yourselves. We're not going to spend another 20 minutes to wrap it up. If their links aren't in the bottom as of right now, I will make sure they will be there after I get off. But yes, so if you want to check everybody else out, everything's in the bottom. Thanks again, Greg. That was an amazing discussion. And thank you for the chat. I appreciate everybody jumping on, everybody adding to the chat. Sorry, I was paying attention too much. I couldn't put up all your comments. But again, that's why we go live. We appreciate it. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.